The plaza was more or less the size of a contemporary village, but the residential areas surrounding it were significantly larger, well over 10 times the size of a contemporary village.
The prehistoric village would have dwarfed the present-day one. And what's more, just as in the Bolivian Amazon, this large village was one of many.
Where today there's one village, in the past, in prehistoric times, this village was integrated with other villages as close as 3 or 4 kilometers away.
It all suggests that the prehistoric Kwikuru were not a tribe of Stone Age semi-nomads caught at the dawn of time. Instead, they and perhaps other central Amazonian tribes had once lived in large, settled societies. Exactly the sort of societies described by Orellana. So, archaeologists have recently begun again to explore the rainforest Orellana traveled, searching for his lost civilization. And as he explored Brazil's Tapajós River, Bill Woods identified a subtle but important clue.
It's somewhat difficult to see, but near the top of this low bluff along the Tapajós, we have very dark soil. This is just a very good example of what covers tens of thousands of hectares in the local region.
This black soil, or terra preta as the Brazilians call it, is dotted all over the Amazon jungle. But what intrigued archaeologists is what it contains.
You'll see all kinds of things scattered over the ground here. Many of them look like rocks or stones, but in fact they're all artifacts. Mostly pottery sherds, busted up jars made by the Indians 1,000, 2,000 years ago. It's a very dense concentration, rather remarkable in all senses. After just a minute or two, I was able to pick up several handfuls of really dramatic pottery sherds. If we can imagine what the whole jars would look like, we'd be rather surprised by these fine works of art.
The pottery they have found is exquisite, and much of it dates from the time of Christ, long before the coming of the Europeans. It was the first hard proof that there had once been an advanced culture in the heart of the rainforest. And when they dug down into the terra preta, scientists made the most revealing discovery of all. Not only was the black soil full of pottery, but it was almost exactly the same composition as the yellow jungle soil around it, except it had been mixed with organic waste. That meant the terra preta had to be man-made.
We know that this terra preta here formed with this soil. So they look very different, and they are very different in a way, but that's the matrix for that. But we have to have human action interfering in the yellow soil in order to create the terra preta.
It was the key revelation. It meant that wherever you find terra preta, there people had once lived. So scientists have started mapping the black soil. And wherever Orellana reported seeing settlements, there they have found it. All along the banks of the Amazon, up the Rio Negro and down the Tapajós. they are finding the Terra Preta. In all, a massive area, twice the size of Britain.
Some have estimated perhaps that as much as 10% of Amazonia is covered with this Amazonian dark earth or Terra Preta. Its widespread distribution, if linked to culture, which the vast majority of contemporary scientists believe, suggests that native cultures are not only widespread, but in some cases phenomenally numerous.
But to convince everyone that there really had been a large prehistoric population in the central Amazon, the archaeologists still had to explain how these people had achieved what we cannot. How had they fed themselves on the poor Amazonian soil? The answer again seems to lie in the Terra Preta.
The soil is easy to work and very fertile. We plant papaya, we plant banana, corn, beans and manioc in Terra Preta. Whatever you plant in Terra Preta does exceptionally well.
Terra Preta is so fertile that it's been prized by Brazilian farmers for centuries. Somehow, the prehistoric Amazonians had transformed the world's worst soil into some of the best.
Unintentionally perhaps, maybe intentionally, the native people enriched the soil in and around where they lived, and this in turn enabled them to intensify their agriculture, which then in turn enabled their numbers to grow and become complex. And Orellana and the things he described become more than plausible, very likely in this scenario.